Hello, Aquarius. Aquarius rising. I do these videos for the rising sign, Aquarius rising. Let me just start off by this one thing I'm going to say to you. I want you to look at me here, Aquarius rising. Do you feel the power? I hope you do. You know, Pluto entered your sign here for 20 years. It's been slow going here, but we officially had Pluto coming into your sign at the end of 2024, and now it's in your world. You Aquarius risings, first house risings, how the rising signs is like the eastern part of the world, the chart. It's like how you rise out into the world, your body, yourself, your soul, your body, your personality, right? Which is always quirky and different and weird. That people are always writing you off or they don't know what to do with you, right? But I love you all. I love you. I love you all, you Aquarius risings. Now you got a power planet like Pluto for 20 years that is like the one of the main themes for the world, technology and things that are different and dogmatism. I mean, not that you're all those things. As humans, we carry all those things, but will you be an example in this interesting journey with Pluto being in Aquarius? Definitely. And so here, let's just start off that way, right? Say it to yourself. When you're feeling alienated and alone because you really like that and at the same time you don't, remember, look in the mirror and say, I have the power. Well, that's an interesting way to start off your forecast video. There's a lot more happening this year than that, but that is underneath. That is what's happening. So that's my thing I'm going to say on that. But I'll talk about some basic themes this year in certain parts of your world and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's start. You know, January is always interesting here when we go to December to January because your birthdays start obviously in the middle of the month, but it's always an interesting transition because of what it is in the northern hemisphere. You know, it's cold and dry, you know, and that's kind of how, in a sense, your planetary ruler, Saturn, is viewed. So it's kind of and you're an air sign. So there's always this detachment, this cold and dry detachment. I know you're cool with it. Some people don't know how to deal with it. But an interesting thing is one of the planets in astrology, Mars, the planet of action, initiation, right? God of war, Ares in Greek myth, you know, sword and shield in battle. But it's really how one takes core energy and has to prove itself out into the world. We do it through Mars. Mars starts off the year, it's already retrograde, which means it's going backwards. It doesn't function on all cylinders. It doesn't like anybody getting in its way or suppressing its path, right? So it's reviewing and revising as a retrograde planet, not firing on all cylinders. But that planet is in the sign of Cancer from pretty much January 6th and the April 17th. And it's in the sign of Cancer, the planet of feelings, I feel, right? That part of your world, that part of your chart has to do with how you deal with your daily regimens, how you deal with your habits every day, and how you serve the world or serve yourself or serve your work. This place also has to deal with pets, so on and so forth, but sometimes illness, actually. But what we want to understand here, it's more about daily rituals if we want to condense it and focus on it. So I think we start the beginning of the year with you with a revamping and a re-understanding of how you do your daily rituals. I think it's very important for you too, because if, let's say, you're in your head all the time, Aquarius rising, like just say you are. And then like sometimes we have to, how do we get out of our heads, or how do we keep everything circulating in your world? Like literally your circulatory system, then other things like what you're connecting to and it flowing, so it doesn't have a separateness feeling. And so I think Mars in this place in your chart that deals with your daily rituals is asking for a revamp of how you do it. What do I do when I get up at 8? What do I do at 10? To-do lists, like tasks, the chop wood, carry water things in your life. And it's also, you know, because it's in the sign of Cancer, it's going to ask of you to get not just here, right? But to ask you to get into your core emotional self and review that. And it's connected to your daily rituals. I think there's an advantage to this. It couldn't be difficult, but if you can make that connection from emotional stories and narratives that are relating to your body in your daily ritual, I think here that you can progress and find some clarity here by the time Mars moves and leaves its retrograde cycle and finally leaves the sign of Cancer, which then it will on April 17th, 18th. And then Mars will move into your opposite sign, Leo, which for you Aquarius risings, that's your relationship house. So you don't get, it doesn't stop. Basically, when we get into the springtime in April all the way into May, you're going to have a major Mars moment in Leo in your relationships and how you relate to not just intimately, all partnerships in general. So on and so forth. These will be fiery and expressive, and you'll have some things to figure out there, and it won't be the easiest of things. And considering that you're in this power place that I started with, in power positions, let's say you had an adversary on the other side of you, or someone who you're cool with, but it becomes contentious. Those are themes that will come up here when we deal with the later spring here with Mars. An interesting run for you. Wow. Now, let's get into the first. I don't want to forget this, though, basically. On January 29th, just to be clear, to finish January-ish, we're gonna have a new moon that happens in Aquarius for you at 9 degrees. We want to take note of that. I also will mention here the full moon that's going to happen. Let me get it straight. August 9th, 2025 in your sign Aquarius. Those are your two major lunations of the year. So let's get into February. That's when the planet Jupiter has been in Gemini since the summer of 2024, the planet of expansion, hope, faith, optimism, its need to seek out, right? Dealing with the highest truth, the ethics of things. It's been in the sign of the communicator, your fellow air sign that you connect with, Gemini. And it's been at this point retrograde for several months, not firing on all cylinders and going through a revisioning and revamping process. And basically the first week during your birthdays, of February 4th, Jupiter stops going backwards and slowly will start to move forward to finish off its story in the sign of Gemini. Where this falls in your life is the place they call the pleasurable pursuits place, the place of creative expression, right? Sounds good, doesn't it? It should be good. I think you need to take advantage of this. I think you actually learned a lot the second half of 2024 of how you create and how you don't like to create, or what didn't work anymore in those realms, right? The exploration of what you do to connect to pleasurable pursuits. By the way, that includes anything you're making creatively, your sexuality, right? For some of you, the narrative and story can focus on children. This place will have movement going forward for you, and I think you need to take advantage of this, because when anything in Gemini happens, it connects to your fellow air sign, and when these two signs get together, anything can happen. There is a free-flowing story that happens. It's almost like a secret language between Aquarius and Gemini. And they're both air signs of the mind. So the ingenuity that you have, and then the cleverness and the dexterity that Gemini brings, the multiplicity of Gemini flows with you, and your intent as a fixed sign to get from point A to point B. And once you get focused, and then you have that craftiness of Gemini in your creative expression house, I'm telling you, work this, okay? And that you're going to have that happening all the way from February to the beginning of June. Take advantage of it, okay? Now, we get into interesting place here in the spring because we're dealing with eclipse season. We're going to have two eclipses. They're happening in affecting the signs of Pisces, Virgo, and Aries. For you, the eclipse the solar eclipse that's going to happen March 13th will affect the place in your world and start to initiate a theme for a year and a half here that deals with your how you're connected to external resources, shared resources in your life, the gains from others, your relationship to that. And sometimes that happens within closer types of relationships. Let's say you have a shared bank account. Other times the examples come through like inheritances, things like that. But for me, I see it a little bit more challenging. I see possible situations where things could be at a loss in this place. And so we have to be careful. And this is a theme for the year and a half. Basically, how you deal with the Pisces Virgo axis for you, Aquarius rising, has to do with how you create resources, and on the other side, the resources that you need that you're tied in with other people. And there's a transformation, a slow going one that is going on. These eclipses happen in March and will also happen in September into October of this year. So I just, on a brief moment, wanted to let you know where things could be leaving and going, gain and loss, right, are in these resource places. A lot of times it does have to do with finances and money, and this is a chance for you to understand what that is in your life and to get a sense and a hold on us. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This shouldn't be a surprise, because for the last couple years, the planet, the authoritative planet, that planet that brings reality in the people's world, Saturn, right? The rule maker, the disciplinarian, the authoritarian, that has been in your money house, not pleasure house, but money and resources house for several years now. And there's been a restructuring going on. And whenever Saturn is entering somewhere, it likes to slow time down and bring contemplation, review, looking at the foundations of wherever it's at, and then like finding out what's not working in those foundations and needing to rebuild it again slowly over time. And that requires discipline, right? That requires a plan, that requires a regimen. Now, that's been happening. So these eclipses happening in those places shouldn't be a surprise. As a matter of fact, it should be a continuation of a story here. Now, be real with yourself when it comes to your spending, it comes to how what your resources are. Now, on a creative level, this could bring a different way of looking at how you generate resources in your life. That's not just money, right? This is what you consider a resource. So you get to dream and envision a little here, but you need to make that vision a reality. And that reality takes hard work, and that's Saturn. Luckily, you're an Aquarius, and that is your ruling planet. So getting fixated and focused and doing the work once you do, and not getting sidetracked and distracted by something off in the stratosphere, but especially in your money houses, remember, the resources that you create, and then the resources that are tied in with other people. These places, wealth, poverty, substance, assets, all these things, that is up for a continuing revisionary story, okay? So I'm just being real with you. Don't mess around with that stuff. Really watch your wallet, but also at the same time, develop prospects that could feed into resource generation. Okay, so that is going on there. That's kind of not, by the way, that story plays out through the whole year because, and I'll get to that. Now, I want to stay on spring here because another major planet, we started the year with a Mars retrograde, okay? And then another personal planet in astrology is Venus. And so Venus is going to go retrograde in March, and it starts in the communicative place of in your world and how you deal with your neighbors and how you deal with your siblings, right? That relating planet, how you relate there, it starts there, and then it goes backwards, and it goes in to Pisces, which is what I just talked about, your money house. And Venus itself deals with not only like your senses and relationships and love, but it deals with resources and values connected to resources. So you will have another planet go into your money houses and mess with it and ask for a review. And this is all happening with eclipses where things come and go. And then actually at the same time, the planet Mercury that deals with communication and things that you contemplate or come up with in your head and how you communicate those things, it is going to do the same path that Venus does. Goes retrograde, and then goes back into Pisces, into your money house. So again, you got to watch contracts. You got to look at your bank accounts. You got to do this. You got to have multiple things happening. Truly, when we deal with this resource place. So it's a major focus, and you start off the year this way. Don't mess around. I actually suggest that you find help. You got to hire a bookkeeper. You got to hire somebody who gives you an outside look, as into a review of all these parts of your life, your assets and your financial affairs, and then the things that are connected to with other people with this stuff. Okay, so don't mess around with this moment, but that's pretty much March and April is a major theme. Okay, all right, so that kind of interesting here because I mentioned Saturn in Pisces for the last couple of years in your money house. Neptune in Pisces has been there for it's like 14 years. Saturn and Neptune will leave your money house here when we get into later spring. Neptune will do it on March 30th. Saturn will do it at the end of May, right? And then they leave, and you're like, okay, cool. Maybe I don't have to do anything else with this cash part or resource generation parts of my chart. And then it leaves, and then it goes into another part of your chart where it has to do with your actual personal surroundings, possibly family members, siblings, short journeys, your neighborhood. That is a theme that is coming your way. And so Saturn and Neptune go into Aries, and they hit that part of your world, and they move along, right? Like, cool, I don't have to deal with the money stuff anymore. But then that's not the case, because when fall comes, slowly those two planets will also go backwards and go back into this money resource place again in the Pisces. And you're like, oh, I got to do this. Oh, I thought I was done. And it just so happens around the time that they do this are those eclipses I mentioned earlier in the fall that deal with these resource places in your chart. And it will be on the table again for you to deal with. Just think of it as like some loose ends you need to take care of. And that will happen all the way to the rest of the year. When we get into 2026, Saturn and Neptune, they'll leave that place. Remember, Neptune deals with dissolving things and the vision and the illusion of things, right? To keep it basic. Saturn deals with the actual reality and matter itself and discipline and the crystallization of visions. Those two in 2026 will do something big in the short journeys part of your chart and your siblings, etc. But that's down the line. Again, I want to reiterate the gains that you make from others, the gains that you create for yourself, the fears that you have along with this stuff, assets, wealth, money, prospects, desires, big theme this year, and then how that translates into resources. All right, I ranted enough about that because I'm trying to get it in your head. All right, Jupiter. When I mentioned earlier, Jupiter being in Gemini, how you have to take care of this, use it creatively, and how it's great for you, it will leave the sign of Gemini in June and enter in the water sign of Cancer for 1 year. And it will actually enter in the place in your chart of how I started this forecast for you. The place that has to deal with the things you do every day, right? How you serve work and how you serve yourself. Sometimes the illness in the body, Jupiter will enter there for 1 year. You have already had some practice the beginning of the year because of Mars revising how you do your day-to-day activities, how you do your regimens. Here comes Jupiter to kind of push that story. And whatever Jupiter touches, wherever it goes, it enhances, expands upon. Right? Doesn't like boundaries. It'll push it all the way as far as it can because it's trying to find the deepest truth with it. But sometimes it's good and other times it can go overboard. So remember, this place in your chart, it's the 6th house for those who are doing astrology and for my Aquarius risings. This is important. I think there's some benefits actually awaiting you there, but I think you need to set up those regimens, those to-do lists, and those daily lists, those habits that you use every day in the beginning of the year. You need to get that together. And if you somehow have it together, I think this could be somewhat beneficial. If not, I think you'll learn the hard way once Jupiter goes into the sign of Cancer in the beginning, the mid part of the year, and then you'll have to just kind of do it all over again, okay? So again, this can be an enhanced situation, but it requires discipline. You notice here that I'm talking a lot about form and discipline and habits. Think about this. All right? If you want to get one thing from all this year, it's that. I'm going to end it with this. In July, another heavy-hitting planet in the zodiac, the planet Uranus, the planet of shock and awe and unpredictability, of ingenuity, unpredictability, wields his lightning bolt wherever it is. And its function is to get at the root and to break up stuff, old habits, and to bring something new down the line, to liberate wherever it's at. Again, it depends on the person in the chart. Sometimes the liberation doesn't feel like liberation. It feels like complete surprise and shock, and people are actually shocked. They're stunned. Other people move with liberating situations and narratives, right? So Uranus will enter the planet of Gemini. I mentioned the Gemini world, and it will do this July 7th for several months. Now, this part of your world has to do with the creative expression I mentioned earlier. For this, for the beginning of the year all the way to June, we had Jupiter, the planet of expansion, in your creative, pleasurable house, right? And then it will leave. But then here comes Uranus down the line, and it's going to kind of touch this place again and throw a little bit of a lightning bolt in the summertime. And you're like, all right, I'm cool with this. I'm down. I've been waiting. Now I'm gonna as an Aquarius, you're gonna deal with unpredictability and moving in different ways. You love doing this stuff. You live for this stuff. So in one sense, you get to have that a little bit in the summertime, right? And then Uranus will be there. But that planet's going to go backwards. And that planet's not going to be in Gemini forever. And it's going to go back into a part of your chart that deals with home and family. You got some stuff to clean up there. That will happen. In November 7th, around that time, Uranus will then be moving forward in Gemini and then go backwards, and then go back into a part of your life and chart that deals with your past, your home, your family, your lineages, your roots and foundations. And you have something to finish there. There's a story to finish there. And that story has been going on pretty heavy since 2018. So you get a hint of things here moving along, and then you got to take it back with Uranus. And you have to expect another surprise or two to happen in your family memory home place, where you come from. It shouldn't be a surprise in the bigger picture, because you've been doing so much work in this place since 2018. Just when you think it's done, it's not. In 2026, Uranus will go back into Gemini for about 7 years, into your creative house for 7 years, and then you get to be your freaky ass self in whatever creative way possible. Show us the way, Aquarius rising. Show us the way. This year is a place of liminal transitions here and there, and focus on cash and regimen and all that. But we're going to be looking to you because of Pluto being in your sign. And eventually in 2026, because Uranus will be in Gemini in your creative house, connecting with Pluto in your sign. Do you know how effing powerful that is? It's huge. And so for me, when an Aquarius is running on all cylinders, when the ideas that they have, the weird, freaky stuff they can never explain to anybody else. I'm a Gemini. I'm going to tell you right now, I get that. I get that in you. I love that part of you. But when it's running on all cylinders, it's like a heralding of new ages for the world, or for one's place. Wherever you as an Aquarius rising is, you kind of are like, bring the new along. The thing you got to be careful of is the dogmatism. Is to think that your way eventually is the only way. You have to remember the collective part in your acceptance as others being as an individual and autonomous, just the way you like to be. Okay? And the great way to utilize this and to balance this is in your life is to show us the creative ways of doing this. You will get hints of this year. It's there. But when 2026 happens in the next review, this will be running on all cylinders. You'll be having fun with that kind of stuff. Before then, in 2025, first we revamp. We have discipline and focus, the money places and resources places in your life. We also look to our daily regimens and our to-do lists and how it affects your work for yourself and others, and how it affects your body, your physical sense. And move through some of these things this year. Then you feel the power. My name's Nicholas. If you found me, you've never been here, I'm Sparkles of Gold. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell to know when I go live, because I go live all the time. If you're interested in a reading for the year, go find me on sparklesofgold.com. You can hit that stuff in the copy. Book a session with me. I love working with my Aquarians. I got a special affinity for them, so on and so forth. I love you all. I love you weirdos, okay? On that note, have a blessed 2025.